No. It's not special. It's not fun anymore. Just play the episode.
Fatigue. It's French for tired, which is English for stanco, which is Italian for izmuccini, which is Russian for dova, which is Klingon for this bit has gone on for far too long. One of the definitions for fatigue provided by Merriam-Webster is a state of attitude or indifference or apathy brought on by an overexposure as to a repeated series of similar events or appeals. This kind of fatigue can set in due to things such as a song on the radio being played far too many times, drawn-out political events, the Kardashians, Twitter, and an overabundance of a billion-dollar franchise. That's right, folks. For the third time on the show, we're having a whole episode dedicated to Star Wars. Only this time, instead of following up on events from the previous installment, I've decided that I'm just going to throw that all away and do something radically different because I want to. Isn't that right, Palpatine? If you want to get really technical with it, I am following up the stuff from the last episode because I've been enjoying the connective tissue with this season, so that's what we're going with. Over the years, I've slowly accumulated this disdain for Star Wars as a franchise. I've grown tired of the branding, the discourse, and just the general negative attitude that has grown attached like a fungus to the franchise. But why has this beloved franchise come to this? How could this series of films become a source of toxicity? And how might we be forever doomed to repeat ourselves in an endless cycle of hatred? Well, it's best to go back to the late 90s, and arguably the only justifiable time to actually call George Lucas an idiot who doesn't understand his own creation. The year is 1993, and Lucas's good buddy Steven Spielberg came out with a little film called Jurassic Park. George not only sees this film's CGI technology as incredible, but necessary to complete his Star Wars vision. See, George was infamous for stating that the original trilogy of films is actually the 4th, 5th, and 6th parts in a series, and that he just did not have the technology to fully encapsulate the first 3 parts. But now with this dinosaur movie out, he knows that now is the right time to get to work on his prequels. Before that, though, he went back to his original films and started changing things around as if this is what he originally wanted them to be like. He added extra scenes, extra CGI, and this weird music video. Objectively, these films are worse than their theatrical counterparts, but they're an interesting experiment seeing what happens when a director returns to an old film and makes changes based on new technology. It stops being interesting when you realize that these special editions are the only ones you can ever see again. It sickens me that, for most people, the original version of this film just doesn't exist anymore. It takes the magic away from it, like when you find out every piece of art at the lore is fake and the original art was probably sold on a black market somewhere. Oh, life spoiler alert. This is the only time I'd say it's perfectly okay to call George Lucas a moron, and that includes the prequel trilogy. Oh yeah, the prequel trilogy is a thing. There's really not much more I can say about the Star Wars prequel trilogy that hasn't already been said. You already know why these movies are bad. Wooden acting, convoluted story, terrible writing, the works. The fandom bullied George Lucas so hard, and it's really unfair to the poor guy. He just wanted to tell a story, but no one really wanted to hear what he had to say. Some of the story beats work retroactively thanks to the Clone Wars, but these movies were not designed to rely on a kids show for context. That was just a happy accident. So afterwards, Lucas sits on his ideas for a sequel trilogy for several years, but he doesn't want to make it because everyone hates him now. This leads to the inevitable step in the creative process when you have something you want to make but just don't have the courage to do it yourself. Sell your story for $4 billion and have somebody else do it. October 2012 is a date that probably lives in infamy for many fans, but it was once a time for rejoicing. We were going to be getting new Star Wars films, even if it did come at the cost of its creator. But little did we know what a horrid future was in store for all of us. But before we get to that, I'll have to revisit the Disney movies and the outrage that each one manifested.
I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it.
Just do it!
The Force Awakens went off pretty much without any major pushback, with any sort of controversy either surrounding to the structure of the plot or with the character of Rey. Let's start with the plot structure because it's nice and short. The movie is basically a remake of A New Hope, but this was pretty okay at the time. The last trilogy resembled almost nothing of the original, so it was nice to see some of the classic stuff we know and love again. In hindsight, this heavily hindered the later films. Now onto Rey and how people don't like her because she's a Mary Sue. She's so powerful for no good reason and everyone likes her. She has no faults whatsoever and beats the villain without any training. Now I had not seen this film in a long time and the later films in the series kinda tainted my opinion of Rey, but surprisingly I really liked her in this one. She's a very fun character and easy to grow attached to. She basically comes off like a space Disney princess, and I mean that as a compliment. Oh yeah, and Rogue One came out between the big movies, but nobody cares enough about Rogue One for me to talk about the bad stuff there, so let's move on to the most divisive film in the entire series, the last Plinkett review. Rise of Skywalker may be the bigger mess, but I think everyone can agree that The Last Jedi was the tipping point to set the entire fandom on fire. It felt like you either had to absolutely love or absolutely hate this film. But really, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. See, something these radical fans hate to admit is that this movie is a heavy mix of things that are amazing and things that are just big wastes of time. And boy, is there a
I can't do this anymore. I can't talk about these movies anymore. I'm just so tired. It's just... Maybe it's better if you see the words come out of my mouth.
I'm going to be brutally honest here, but this isn't the TV persona talking anymore. This is Andrew Vick speaking directly from the heart. Hi. Nice to finally meet you. I feel like I've used this franchise as a crutch for this show for the longest time. I feel like if I've never had a good enough joke or a lackluster comparison, I always find a way to somehow connect it to Star Wars. Even when a global pandemic halts all production, I still went with a Star Wars at Home episode. That's another thing too, I should mention. There is a good reason I never continued the Rise of Skywalker analysis. It's not just because of that movie. Even with this episode you're watching right now, I found writing about this franchise to be exhausting. I am so tired of talking about this franchise and how it's gone downhill, or, ooh, I don't like this, or, oh, that doesn't make any sense. It's tiring. It's tiring. I don't like talking about it anymore, so I'm not going to. I'm never going to reference Star Wars on this show ever again. And I know Alex is cheering when I say that. I've talked about it too much on this show, so I'm going to remove it from my theatrical vocabulary for my own sake. Now, I know this seems like a rather downer ending to this episode and the season as a whole, but again, this is real Andrew talking. I think this is the best season I've ever done. It's been more work than my previous output, but I've had so much fun making every episode. I've had so much creative freedom, the fluff is basically gone, the scripts are tighter, and every episode has been different from the last, and yet it still feels as if they're all from the same voice. My voice. So let me just take this moment to thank you for watching as long as you have. I know the show has had its ups and downs, but the best is yet to come. Just you wait. Well, I haven't said in a while, but that's a wrap for this episode. I'm Andrew Vick, and I'll be seeing you and the end real soon.